Thank you so much. You're joining me and Jamie. I just wanted to thank everyone for coming today. I joined Scanning Pens last fall, and I'm working more in a business development role where a lot of my job is connecting the dots and finding people to share our story. That's exactly how we met Jaime Baker. I managed to accomplish this quite naturally with Jamie. I feel she's more basically a friend than a random name in our database at this point. We were first introduced as she signed up for a free parent trial, and she luckily had put extra information in her registration that she was training with the National Institute for Learning Development Canada. Scanning Pens has done a bunch of presentations with NILD, so we were very pleased that Jamie came to us from that impressive institution. From Jamie's free trial of our reader pen, our conversations and ideas just naturally flowed. One thing we strongly have in common is our passion for reading and helping those with their right to read. We know that it can be quite a struggle for some out there. I know this firsthand as my niece is dyslexic. I watched her struggle, and Jamie certainly knows from watching her daughter struggle on a personal level. So, this webinar means a lot to us, and it also will mean hopefully a lot to a lot of parents out there. Jamie's going to walk us through some building up some strategies, and we're going to be hopefully getting some ideas how we can build a reading culture at home. So with this, I want to present Jaime Baker, and she's going to be talking about more from an education perspective and as a parent homeschooler as well. So I'm going to pass the mic over to my new best friend, Jaime Baker.
Oh, thanks so much, Siobhan. When I met Siobhan, I knew we were going to hit it off. Working with someone who is passionate about helping others is a great feeling. And I have truly enjoyed her encouragement and support, but mostly her drive. This isn't just a job for her. She believes in what she's doing, and it truly shows. So yes, I'm thrilled to be here. I hope everybody can be comfortable, and I've got my mug here, and I'm excited to share some ideas that hopefully will be helpful to you. I am a homeschooling mama to 4 amazing kiddos, and yes, I'm biased. What can I say? I am also the first to tell you that our days are not perfect. We have had quite the journey with learning, and there have been messy times, emotionally, physically, mentally, messy. And I wouldn't change it for the world. Thanks to a very supportive and caring and empathetic husband, I can and am privileged to teach our children at home. So right now we have a soon-to-be 15-year-old, days away from a 13-year-old, just turned 11-year-old, and days away from a 9-year-old. And we live life joyfully, creatively, energetically, sometimes spontaneously, and definitely wholeheartedly. Reading has always been a part of my life. As an early childhood education grad, I soaked up information about the whys and hows and whens of early literacy. And it seemed really natural to use these new skills to raise up my own kids to love reading too, to give them the best head start. And our first 3 children, they picked up reading fairly easily, considering the amount of books we read to them from infancy and learning the opportunities that they had through reading with us, many hours of building up their reading skills. And it turned out that their reading was pretty well what I expected, for the most part. But our daughter received the same opportunities. She was being read to pretty well every night, nap time and in between. She would quote back to us her favorite stories, and her language, I have to say, was clear. It was growing. But when it came to start learning her alphabet, she seemed to have no idea what any of the letters were. Even after games and magnets on the fridge, coloring pages, activities, talking about all of her experiences with her. And by the age of 6, she seemed to be learning only a couple of letters, but could only tell me a little more about their names than their sounds. Even then, the letters' names were mixed up, sounds were mixed up, and retention was scattered. Her long-term memory wasn't seeming to connect or keep any of this information. I made up games, I sang songs, had her moving her body to learn the alphabet, like jumping on mats, just to get her involved. But nothing seemed to be working. And at age 7, she began to try more independently to write letters. And I, of course, encouraged her and offered multiple opportunities for writing, like writing in the air, writing in sand, on large paper, painting. I noticed that she had nice handwriting, but was struggling with reversals, often letters N, H, U, B, D, P, Q, if she could even recall the letters. And often she could print one, but she couldn't tell me the name or the sound. So repeated writing of her name was even a challenge. One day she might write it correctly, and the next day she couldn't. So all these symptoms I've noticed, and I started taking note, observing her, and just making these notes for myself on paper so that I didn't forget what was happening. She also struggled to keep up in conversation. And I learned later this was because of her auditory weaknesses in phonology and her ability to process language. I would sometimes get that deer in the headlight look, this blank look when I would talk with her. In conversations with her younger cousins, she was not able to talk about reading, just letters even. And it started to become very challenging for her socially even. She struggled to find her memory for loved ones' names. And they thought she was being silly or joking, but she wasn't. So much was going on that I had not yet experienced. And soon, no matter how much fun I made, or I thought I made the lessons, there were tears, frustration, and even attitude from my sweet little girl that had never given me attitude before. And then my heart ached when I heard, "I don't like reading," as tears filled her eyes. I could still cry. And that was the breaking point for me. Every red flag in my mind was flying high. I knew something was not right, and I could see where it was heading, and I needed support. So after some research, I connected with a Lexercise specialist, and we were quickly booked for a couple of testing sessions. And I needed backup. I needed that assurance that I was not in the wrong and that my instincts as a mom and educator were correct, that I was not overreacting. So that support made a huge difference for me and my daughter. And I cannot tell you what that diagnosis did for all of us. Many are concerned about labeling their children. And I'll tell you, without that label, my daughter was beginning to label herself already. She was labeling herself unable, a failure, hater of reading. And later in life, I don't even want to think about what her labels for herself would be. But this way we had a starting point. We were getting ready to tackle this thing called dyslexia and appreciate the strengths that came along with it. We gave her a name for her different, not stupid brain. We talked about the whys and the hows and the whats. We talked about other kids that use their brains differently to learn to read too. This was a huge journey for me personally. Because you see, as I was helping my daughter, I was also helping my son who was struggling with ADHD and some language processing issues. And so I decided to go back to school, and I decided to train under NILD, the National Institute for Learning Development. And I picked them because when I heard people speak about what they did and the testimonies that were coming from NILD, I knew I had to be part of this. NILD trains and equips educators to help struggling learners find hope so that they can succeed. Often the learners that we see have struggled for so long that they have built these thick walls to protect themselves from feeling more shame and negative emotions because of their learning differences. As an educational therapist, it is extremely important to us to support students. We support them in their cognition, so their thinking, their perception, taking that information in and processing it through their senses. We support them emotionally because they have feelings of the world around them, and a lot of times it can be negative when they're struggling learners. We support their relationships and how they approach life. We want them to have confidence. And we support them academically, so we help them know how to learn, creating independence and confidence. And we help students with ADHD, autism spectrum disorder, dyslexia, dysgraphia, dyscalculia, auditory processing disorder, and more. And how do we do this? How is NILD different than other interventions, you ask? Well, see, we receive ongoing training. It's in scientifically supported research. NILD educational therapists can target a learner's specific areas of challenge with an individualized program using a variety of techniques. We help the student in their overall ability to think, reason, and process information. It is true therapy because it is individualized, and we aim our intervention just above the learner's level of functioning and raise expectations as they build their confidence and competence. You see, our goal is to strengthen the weak areas rather than simply treat their symptoms. Essentially, we teach students how to learn, not just what to learn. And I've been able to work with my daughter through Search and Teach, which is a program through NILD. It's an early intervention program to assess and support their perceptual skills that are essential for reading. And she's gone through 1 year of educational therapy with me to work on her cognitive, perceptual, emotional, and academic needs. The crying has stopped. Her confidence has grown. Her reading is a work in progress. Note, I said progress, but it's much better than it could have been. And her learning overall has been strengthened through the techniques used in her individualized program. And this has helped her math, her writing, and her spelling as well. And so it was during the fall of last year that we decided to try this free trial for Reader Pen by Scanning Pens. As Siobhan mentioned, I had heard about this through our conference, and I contacted the company as soon as I could and was amazed at how fast it came. Now, she still balks at reading at times because when there's more fun things to do as a kid, who wants to sit down and read, right? Mm-hmm. She hasn't connected with that yet, but it's working. It's coming. So it is going to take years still for her. Dyslexia is not something that just gets cured. It takes intervention. And for her, it's going to take years of strengthening her brain for this task. However, she can sit with a book and independently tackle the words and sentences using her strategies from therapy to begin the process of comprehension. And that's why we read, isn't it? We read to comprehend, to learn new ideas. Today, for example, she sat and read with the reader pen in her hand. Now, she didn't actually use it this time. She does often scan words, and I'm going to teach you kind of the strategies that we use. But this time, just knowing that it was there to help her if she needed it was enough to get her reading independently. Without it, she gets a fear inside that she's going to fail. So it's such an extension of her emotional being as well that it gives her confidence. So our strategies, when we come to text, we always say, okay, what is it that happens if we don't know what's on the page? So number one, we try the word first. Okay. So she'll say a word. And if she's by herself, she knows now, try the word. She's going to look for patterns that she's learned from her educational therapy. Are there blends? What's at the beginning and the end of the word? Are there vowel teams, affixes, anything familiar? If she still can't get it, she'll try again. Then she spells the word out loud. If it's still not coming, she can try again. Then we like to think, well, what is the word do you think? Does it make sense in the sentence? She'll use the reader pen to scan the word. Then the aha moment, if she still hasn't been able to get it. And this is a method that works for her. She really has grown leaps and bounds using these strategies. Once she's scanned the word and read the entire sentence again, she asks herself, does this sentence make sense? If it doesn't make sense, then she's trained in her eyes now to look and check for punctuation. Then she scans the reader with the reader pen, the entire sentence. Once it makes sense, then she needs to read that sentence again out loud. As we have worked through this process, she has become more fluent in her reading. She's become more comprehensive of her reading and more confident in her reading. It has, like I said, become an extension of herself. She holds it so naturally and tracks the sentences with ease using this pen. And with some passages that have been practiced over and over, she says confidently, I don't need it right now. And yet she'll still hold it just in case. So as an educational therapist, I always want to work with the brain first. I want to help the learner understand the efficient strategies that they can connect with and that they're there to use, to critically think through options, to see patterns, to hear their own voice making the necessary sounds by having phonological and phonemic awareness. This to me is first and foremost. But when and if I have a student that has no desire to pick up a book on their own because they feel they aren't confident enough, the reader pen is awesome. I love hearing her say, look, Mom, I read it and I checked it and it was right. I am thrilled when I can look over and see her using her reader pen and reading out loud to herself. Now, I get it. Life is busy. However, we need to make time to help kids with reading. It takes time consistently. To strengthen those neural pathways, we need daily practice. But the reader pen can be that filler in the time when we don't have 100% of our time to sit with a student who wants to try. I like that the reader pen is a help to her when I'm busy working with another student. Like I said, we have 4. So if I'm busy with one, another student who's really needing assistance with something, she can take the reader pen and go work. She can read and she can understand. So rather than no reading, she is engaging with the text. She's hearing herself try, she's checking it with the pen, and she's using critical thinking to see if she understood the text or not. And I can't tell you how happy I was to find a tool that also encouraged interaction with books made of paper, that she could flip the pages, that she could feel the pages she had read versus the pages she had left to read, because there is that too. It's a comparison in the cognitive process. So we want to keep books. We want to limit screen time, right? Eric Wolfland of Karlstad University in Sweden conducted a study involving a 30-minute Swedish language reading comprehension exam consisting of multiple choice questions about 5 texts that averaged 1,000 words each. The results of his study showed higher levels of stress and tiredness when this was taken on a computer than on paper. Reading is serious brain work, and it is exhausting as it is. Why would we want to add more for the brain to deal with? Okay, so maybe I'm a little old school, but I am getting tired of everything as a mom. I'm tired of everything being on a screen. And with resources that are only Wi-Fi connected or smartphone using or app suggesting or device seeking type of technology, I want my children to use technology for so many reasons. But again, who has time to sit beside or be in the room with your learner, your child, every minute that they want to connect and spend money on more internet safety software? I don't. So when it comes to internet safety, in today's day and age, it is more crucial than ever to be training our kids in internet and social media safety. And this got me thinking, you know, with the reader pen, I can freely give her the pen and not worry. You know, it says that teachers report that cyberbullying is their #1 safety concern in their classrooms, according to a recent Google survey. How sad that we have to worry about this instead of being and putting all of our emotional effort into teaching the act of reading. 52% of parents are worried their child will be bullied via social networking sites. Bullying over texting is becoming more and more common. These are all applications for reading, but there's that fear that's connected with it. And due to the surge in social isolation and device using during the pandemic, digital media experts say that sharing nude selfies and other sexually explicit messages between teens and tweens is only getting worse. Wow. When a child's and a teen's prefrontal cortex, which sits right in the front of our brain, has not yet matured, we cannot take for granted that their brains are not ready to make consistently safe and wise decisions while in a realm that offers so much distraction, overwhelming choices, and information that is literally forced into their faces. This is especially true for children and teens with ADHD. And see, I love the reader pen because it's not connected to my Wi-Fi. I feel good knowing that my daughter can use this brilliant technology that is compact and independent from connections that can't confront her with cyberbullying, cyber predators, phishing scams, or accidentally downloading malware. So please don't take me the wrong way. There are so many positive areas to speak on about the advanced technology of our internet nowadays, but with great privilege comes great responsibility, some of which our children and teens are too young to carry. We want learning to happen in a safe way with focus and positive experiences. The reader pen is a tool for such learning. So all this said, it cannot be simply given to a learner without guidance, encouragement, and positive reinforcement. So that's what I really wanted to share. And I know we're going to let you view the video right now. So yeah, I hope you can enjoy that. And then when we come back, I'd really love to share with you about reading culture and how we can make that positive in our homes.
Is my uncle really horrible? She asked.
For you. Let's check it on the dictionary and see what it means. What's friar mean?
So go to scary.
I like that you're guessing before you check.
Is my uncle really horrible? Is my uncle really horrible?
Hey, were you right?
Yeah.
Hey, good check. Nicely done.
No. No lie. Certainly.
We have read to our kids
Since they were infants.
Our first three children
learned to read
fairly easily,
but our daughter really
struggled.
We didn't know why
the letters were taking so long to get into her long-term memory.
The sounds
were almost impossible for her.
She struggled.
And the older she got,
the harder it was.
to the point where she
really truly
hated the experience of trying to learn to read.
Not long after
we got a diagnosis of dyslexia.
An amazing piece of
information
is that IQ
has nothing to do
with
dyslexia.
Kids with dyslexia are so smart. My daughter is so artistic. She sees things that I never see, and she can draw them. But for her to unlock the adventures of a story are rather challenging when her ability to see the words and hear the sounds are challenged. As a parent, I'm thrilled that this pen has given her the confidence to pick up a book and want to try. As an educational therapist, I love that the strategies I've taught her in her therapy sessions to help her read are still being used with even more confidence. I cannot recommend this pen enough. Okay, remember, if we can't remember how to say it, let's see your pen. You can go back, scan with your arrows. Yep, and then press your circle when you get over that same word.
Friar Tim, enemies certainly think.
So, what was that name again?
Friar.
Friar, good. Friar Tim.
Said Friar Tim.
What was it like before you had the reader pen?
Hard work to read. And now it's like easy work.
And now it's like easy work. That's great, honey. So that was my little sweet one there. She's quite a kiddo. And I so appreciate the opportunity to be able to share our story, because if anything, my heart has really learned to reach out to parents who are struggling with their struggling readers. And this is a tool that I cannot emphasize enough of how much it's helped us. So I'm happy and excited to share that. I'm also happy and excited to share how to create a reading culture in your home. You know, when you think about culture, what do you think of? Do you think food and clothing, song and dance, rites of passage, daily routines? Culture is something we experience every minute of every day without really giving too much thought. We socialize in it, we take care of ourselves surrounded by it, and we invest time to help our culture continue. Reading culture is the same way. If I was to move to another part of the world and want to integrate into their culture, I wouldn't do it overnight. It would take patience. I would need to observe those in the culture and take note and observe their ways. I would get out and try their food, notice their way of setting up house, shopping, interacting, clothing styles. And some cultures can seem very similar to our own, and yet hold an even greater depth. But it takes time and involvement, slowly over time, to appreciate the richness of a different culture. Reading culture is the same. It takes a group of people, so you, maybe some family members, the local library, a book club, reader pen. Similar ages and stages could start a book club. Teachers, of course, principals, grandparents are awesome, and elderly neighbors too. For those of you working with a learner who has a learning difference, specifically in reading, I have some tidbits of what we have done in our home and learned along the way that has led to a strong reading culture in our house. And these are also very effective for children and teens with ADHD. So the first thing, you have to be positive. If we say things like, "Oh, I hate reading," or "I just had this huge report for work that I had to read through and it was awful," kids and teens take that negativity on about reading. They don't understand the difference between a report for work full of stats versus a story that could captivate their attention. The next thing is we need to be hearing it, seeing it, and start simple and small. Don't go to the library and get out 25 books expecting to sit down and read them all the first day. If your child or teen has no interest, start with a sentence from something you know they like. Read it ahead of time. Say, I was reading the other day, ants don't have lungs. Those little creatures that crawl along the ground? Ants. They don't have lungs. They breathe through their stomachs. Isn't that strange? And then leave it. Same book the next day. You'll never guess what I just read. You can use pine cones to forecast rain. Forecast, that's a neat word. I wonder what that means. And then you can talk about when rain is on the way, the scales close on the pine cone. Eventually, these small sentence sneakers can become paragraph powerhouses. They will want more interesting facts to tell their friends. And if I can recommend these little tiny books, so there's Uncle John bathroom readers for kids, Infomania, the Did You Know, and even this one for kids only. These are great. My teens love them. In fact, I even said I should give them credit for homeschooling just in an Uncle Bathroom Reader course because they have pretty well memorized tons of them. The next point that's very crucial is that it has to be natural, not forced. When there is downtime after lunch, after bath or PJs for little ones, after the crazy of the day for teens, right before bed, maybe you've tucked them all in. Maybe you're having that sit down and chat time with your teens at the end of your bed, because I know my teens need that. They need that time to just decompress. They love to chat at night when it's supposed to be bedtime. That's the time when it's good to take something out. And funny books before bed are awesome. If you know it won't rile your kids too much, it has actually been studied that a good laugh before bed helps relax muscles and reduce stress. It also increases melatonin, a hormone that your brain produces in response to darkness. And melatonin helps your circadian rhythms, that internal clock, with sleep. So there you go. And you need to be real. Pick up books that you have interest in. If you come across a word you don't know, share it out loud. I just read this word. I have no idea what it means. I'm guessing it could mean, and guess what? If you have a reader pen in your home and you don't know how to pronounce the word yourself, use it. Show them that you have intentionality with the reader pen as well, and that will click with them. They will want to use it as well. Think out loud for them to see how you are going to figure out words. Dictionaries in book form are seeming to be a thing of the past, but they are powerful tools to teach from and model with. Next, investigate, invest, ignite. Look into what they really enjoy. Skateboarding, clothes, nature, slime, animals. Then go to your closest library and find books pertaining to that interest. Put them on the coffee table or a basket near a cozy location with good lighting. Start a book-only budget for those interests they have. You can even use a jar. And every time you notice your child or learner using a word that is part of their interest, ask them what it means. If they teach you something new, put a coin or a marble or a token into that jar and say, "Thanks for teaching me that." And when they fill the jar, gift them with more on their interest as they continue to teach you more about that interest. And it doesn't always have to be books. Many kids, teens, and adults alike enjoy teaching what they're interested in. And we've talked a bit about this already, but model. Put the phone down. Our kids are not seeing many older models picking up books, but rather phones. They're texting, they're searching Facebook, or even reading the news on phones. And that's not being a model for reading, it's being a model of what we're trying to fight ourselves, which can be screen addiction and distraction. We need to model focus and make a big deal out of books. And remember to keep it real. If you struggle, that's okay. I think it's time that our kids see grown-ups make mistakes, but learn from them, or, are comfortable with mistake making so that they know they're learning. It's okay to make mistakes. And then share what you've learned with your kids and your teens. And I love this one. My kids always razz me for this. You got to hook them and then give them the cliffhanger. When reading at home to your learners and you get to that point when they are begging you to read another chapter, save it. You'll hear, please, just one more. And sometimes you finish mid-chapter, but at a high point. And this works with audiobooks as well. Get them excited to hear the next part, to think about what is going to happen. Share what you think might happen next if they don't. This is called inferencing, and it's an important piece of thinking for comprehension. A lot of kids like to act it out. If my struggling learners need to be willing to trust and open up to learn, then so do I. I might not love acting, but a lot of times kids and teens do. I need to be willing to take risks and make mistakes, to try new things that I'm not completely drawn to in order to help them and get them moving. It might be as small as a fidget toy. You could have a basket nearby to pick from, as this will help any restlessness, maybe even anxiety during reading. But also allow a reader to safely move around if they need to while they read. Often I've had kids in the house who read upside down on the couch. They might be sitting backwards on a chair. They might lie on the floor and roll around after a page is finished. Let them do it. It encourages them to read how they're comfortable reading. And make up stories. Often at the dinner table, you can make up sentence by sentence stories. You can make up stories where one person starts a sentence, the next person finishes it. Start off with one day, and then the next person has to use fortunately, and then the next person has to use unfortunately. And I find even teens can like this because they get pretty silly with it. And if you are good at coming up with stories on the spot, absolutely do it. Put their name into the blank spot of your story. My husband, who also struggles with dyslexia, isn't the person to pick up a novel to read to the kids. But one night I caught him telling a story out loud to our daughter about a princess and an ogre. It was silly, it was personal, it had problem solving, social skills, it was captivating. And he totally had her hooked. But he was still helping her in her thinking with reading by doing that. And you want to reward them. Instant rewards are best, especially for learners with ADHD. They need encouragement with their attention and regulation. If you have screens as an option during a reading time of the day, they most likely won't pick up a book. Screens provide quicker forms of reward. They are easier on the brain than books. But screens cannot compete with the ability a book has to build vocabulary, cognitive processes, and critical thinking. So set up a reward chart. Every time they read with their pen, their reader pen, every 5 minutes they spend, start little. And then the next time, every 20 minutes. And you see that grow. Go to 30, 45, an hour. Every little bit needs to be encouraged. Now, something that's very critical to think about. We have all these great ideas now, but what about one of the biggest pieces of our puzzle to get them encouraged and feeling good about reading? The environment. The same thing here, you need to start small. Each week, you can slowly add something new to an area. Make sure you sit in that area yourself and pick up a book to look at. Like we said, you want to model it. Just 15 minutes. Don't give the kids any screen options. See what happens. Even if you put an audiobook, it will do the same thing. The area of the brain that is used for reading will be lighting up, and that learner will be engaged. And tweaking the environment to help kids with ADHD and sensory processing issues or autism to create a sensory safe place is being proactive. And this ensures that they want to even be in the environment to read and willing to pick up one or more books. So have some comfy pillows, blankets, have inviting smells, essential oil drops even, sometimes on the pillows. Make sure you're aware of the sound in the environment. You know, is it too loud here? Is it by a distracting area? Very quiet instrumental music in the background, or even a fan running can sometimes help sensory specific kids calm down. Are the things that you have there accessible? You don't want to have books on a high shelf all the time. Have them in baskets and at a table, in a bin. Get creative. It shows that books are interesting and special. And display them. Put them out. Themes. What they're interested in. Topics of conversation. See if they can guess your theme. And keep it uncluttered. Keep it simple. And of course, have the reader pen there in the environment, highlighted. Have a fancy plate that you buy from a secondhand store and put it on that like it's the treasure to be held. You want to encourage them to use it. So we need to teach and model how bindings of books sit and how to put them back, how to fix books, how to respect the hard work someone committed to a book so that you could enjoy it. Have rules and be positive about them. I like how you're caring for these books. Hey, I noticed that you placed the book carefully down and didn't just toss it. Thanks for picking that book up off the floor. Make time for conversation later in the day and the week for what is read. Ask a question at the beginning of the week and revisit it at the end of the week. You could post questions on a corkboard or soap the mirror with a question when they're brushing their teeth. And use I wonder statements. Get them thinking. Hey, I wonder what that character that you just read about is going to do in the next chapter. Go for walks to chat about the book. Movement helps to stimulate that brain. And make it tea time for discussing favorite parts of a sentence, paragraph, short story, or a book. Even chat about what they learned new that week with the reader pen, how it helped them. And support. We all need support. All of these ideas are not just for parents, but also for classroom settings, grandparents' homes, aunts and uncles' places. Grandparents, I encourage you, buy a reader pen and have it at your home and help your grandchildren with their reading process. What a great gift to give them. We can't be relying solely on teachers and schools all the time to establish a reading culture. If our kids go to school, especially if they're struggling learners, and come home to a place where books aren't important, reading isn't featured in time, and if we're too busy to plant seeds of interest, we are working against the potential for a reading culture. And that's not what we want. So I really appreciate the time that you've allowed me to come here today and to share my ideas and my experience, personal experience with our family. And I'm just thrilled to be able to work with this great company that has made a huge difference in our family's life.
Thank you so much, Jamie. That was wonderful. The tips that you gave at the end, just brilliant. Does anyone have any questions? I'm going to open up the chat box here. If anyone has any thoughts or questions, feel free. We're here. Operators are waiting. I'm just going to turn off my mic because I don't want everyone to hear all the traffic.
Okay. I just saw this question here from Judy. Thanks for your question. So do any of your daughter's friends ask about the pen? They have, in fact. It's been very interesting. We have a lot of kids in the area whose parents have come to talk to me about the struggles their kids have at school. And when Sophie has been talking about her experience with reading with her friends, the reader pen's part of it. So she'll usually have her glasses, her reader pen, and her books at a table. And when friends come over, they've seen it. They haven't used it yet, but I know we're getting there because some of these kids do struggle as well with reading. So just the fact that Sophie has already modeled positive talk about this pen has really encouraged me, and I'm hoping that some of these parents will come on board as well. Exactly. Yeah. It needs to be normalized. These kids need to hear about it first, but also to see somebody else who's around their age modeling for them that it's definitely a help for them. Yeah.
I just wanted to pop back in here.
Yeah.
If anyone does have any questions, you know where to reach me at Scanning Pens. I'm sure you'll hopefully see a link, and my email I'm going to put in the chat box just in case this can help anyone out there. And thanks again so much, Jamie. That was just brilliant. You know, I hope everyone learned something. I always learn something new every time we speak. So, you know, I walked away with, you know, brighter eyes yet again. I thought your ideas about how to encourage children to read or things, those tips, I find are just brilliant. And I think that would really help a lot of parents, like things I would never even thought about. And you know, and the respect for books, so important. So thank you so much. I feel exactly the same way. Just even to point that out, thank you so much for picking up that book. It's such a simple thing.
Yeah.
It speaks, you know, volumes to that child, like respect the book.
That's right. Exactly. Right? Yeah. Oh, and just to answer Judy's question here too, my daughter's just turning 9 in a week. So, yeah, I said to Siobhan at the beginning, you know, I've seen a huge, huge change in her in the past 2 years with the combination of educational therapy, but also the reader pen. So I give full credit. You know, for me, this is just as a mom, because I'm tied to her, not just as an instructor, teacher, or mediator. This is my own baby girl. So I am thrilled that she has these tools. Yeah. So thank you.
All right. Well, thank you for everyone for joining us. Definitely spread the word. We have free parent trials, exactly how Jamie discovered us. And thanks again, Jamie. It was wonderful. Thanks so much for your time and tips. And if anyone has any further questions, definitely reach me at Siobhan@scanningpens.com. And definitely check out the link in the box for any free trials and send it to anyone that you think, you know, might benefit. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.